The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to the Star Sport podcast. My name is Jack McCarran of the Southern Star and I'm joined by Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy. Before we kick things off, I'd just like to give a gentle reminder to our listeners and viewers to please rate, review and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, where your bank really does matter. Choose the credit union, choose local, choose community. On this week's podcast, we're reflecting on a famous win for the Castlehaven ladies footballers who continued their rise up the Cork footballing ranks by clinching the county intermediate title after an epic 25-metre free shootout win against Glanmire on Saturday. We'll be joined by captain Siobhan Courtney, who along with Rachel Whelton kicked the winning frees as Castlehaven won the shootout 2-1. We'll also look to the county Senior A hurling final between Courcey Rovers and Father O'Neill's at Páirc Uí Chaoimh on Sunday. Matthew Hurley has been catching up with Courcey's manager Sean Guiheen. But Kieran will kick things off today with a look back at a mixed weekend for West Cork clubs in county semi-finals. On a positive note, Bantry Blues got the better of Iveleary in the intermediate semi-final on a scoreline of 3-13 to 1-16, and they'll now take on Kanturk in the county final on October 23rd. Elsewhere, the Bars got the better of Castlehaven in the final part of their county semi-final trilogy to end the West Cork side's interest in this year's championship, while O'Donovan Ross's run came to an end in the Senior A championship. Gino Donovan's side were bested by St Michael's on a scoreline of 2-21 to 2-11. But Kieran, starting with Bantry, the Blues are now well placed to win their first adult football title in 24 years, a long time.
That's exactly it, Jack. It's such a long time for Bantry Blues. It's their first county adult football final since 2001 when they lost the Cork senior football final to Nemo Rangers, and they'll be hoping for their first county senior adult football final win since 1998 when they beat Duhallow in that decider, and that was Bantry's second county senior football title in 4 years because they won in 95 as well. But 21 years is a long time for a club like Bantry Blues to wait to get back into an adult county football final, but they're there on merit. If you remember, they topped their group in the Premier Intermediate Football Championship this year. Did a great win against Castletown Bear in the Battle of the Bay in the group stage. So that put them through to the semi-final, and did again another super win against Iveleary, 3-13 to 1-16 last weekend. Rory Dean led by example. He kicked 6 points. Man of the match performance by the former Cork footballer Arthur Coakley, kicked 2-3 for Bantry. And it's just great to see Bantry back in a county final. And if you look back at last year, Bantry were on their knees as such because they got relegated from the Senior A Football Championship. They'd been in that relegation final 2 years in a row, and they eventually fell through the trap door last year, so they found themselves down in the Premier Intermediate Football ranks, which is the third tier here in Cork. And they could have felt sorry for themselves and kind of wallowed in what had happened in the previous years, or actually get back on the horse and make a really good go of it this year. And in fairness with David O'Donovan at the helm there, they've really responded, and it's just great to see Bantry back in a county final. They've 4 wins in a row, 4 championship wins in a row, I'd say for the first time since they probably got to that county final back in 2001. And much like Downey's last year, when Downey's got to the semi-finals of the Senior A Football Championship, what these new grades in Cork are allowing teams to do, they're allowing teams to, you're in the grade that you deserve to be in, because you just can't, a team can't be up at Premier Senior anymore if they're not good enough, because they'll get found out and they'll drop down through the ranks. So Bantry are a Premier Intermediate club because they deserve to be there. But what this season has done, it's allowed them to rebuild, regroup and go again. And they now find themselves in a county final against Kanturk in a couple of weeks' time. And it's it's just great news for the club. It's great for Bantry Town. I think it's brilliant for Bantry to get a bit of bunting back around the town, a bit of excitement, a huge game to look forward to. Great for the clubs, great for the kids in Bantry Blues to look up to their new heroes who are in a county final. And I know we're going to have a lot more about this final in the weeks to come on the podcast, but it's the real positive story from the men's side of the football championships last weekend.
Yeah, and obviously, as you rightly point out, we will be doing a deep dive on the final in the coming weeks, but just briefly on Kanturk, the team that they'll face. What do we know about this Kanturk side? And at this stage, how confident would you be of Bantry going back up the ranks?
I'd be hopeful Bantry will get back up to the senior A ranks at the first time of asking, but Kanturk will be a tough nut to crack. There's Walshes for every looking at team. I think it was against Neva Bawn in the group stage of the championship, but I could be wrong here, where whatever score Kanturk put up, the Walshes kicked it all. Like there's cousins and all that, and that's brothers and cousins and so on. Kanturk beat Kilnamartyr by a point last weekend, and I know John Evans, the Kilnamartyr boss, was saying after it was an absolutely heartbreaking defeat. But Kanturk are a really, really good team, and they'll be really tough opposition for Bantry. For example, Aidan Walsh, a former teammate of Rory Dean, like they'll be in opposition up in Páirc Uí Chaoimh in a couple of weeks' time. So it's a big ask for Bantry Blues, but the big thing is they're there on merit, and they're one game away from a county title and promotion straight back up to senior A. So I'd be hopeful that Bantry will do the business.
Good stuff. Well, let's look at the more sombre news. Sombre is probably the wrong word, but
disappointing.
Yeah, sombre is probably pushing it a bit too far. But two of West Cork's most prominent clubs were in semi-final action as well at the weekend. Castlehaven in the Premier Senior Football Championship and O'Donovan Rossa in the Senior A Championship. Both were knocked out. Castlehaven on the wrong end of a loss against their recent rivals, the Bars. It was the third semi-final in a row that they've met, and the Bars have got the better of them.
Yeah, third semi-final in a row, and Bars are edging it 2-1 at the moment, and Bars were good value for the win in Páirc Uí Chaoimh last Sunday, 217 to 116. It was two second half goals that did the job for the Bars, Stephen Sherlock and Brian Hayes, and there was no qualms after about the result, because the better team did win. And in Thursday's Southern Star, in his column, Hawley O'Sullivan makes the point that the Bars are a better proposition this year than they were last year. He can see this is a team that's improving, and we've got to remember too that the Bars are the reigning Cork champions. They are the reigning Munster champions. They're a team brimming with talent, but Haven really did push it to them. That first half was score for score, and it looked like we were set up for another really, really tight second half. And at half time I was thinking, is there the possibility of extra time here, and could we get another penalty shootout? But it just didn't turn out to be the case. Haven will be disappointed to bow out, but I suppose you can't take comfort as such, but when you lose to the better team, I think you can take that you can take that in the chin a lot more easily. Whereas if you lost a team that you felt that you should have beaten, so disappointing for Castlehaven. They've been the most consistent West Cork team over the last decade, but it's actually now it's gone on nearly 10 years since Haven won their last senior football championship. I was actually surprised to when I saw that stat again. It was 2013 when Haven won the most recent, and that's 10 years. And you're looking at the team there, and they are good enough to compete, and they are good enough to win a title. Look at Brian Hurley, Mark Collins, Damien Cahalan, Conor Cahalan, Jack Cahalan, young fellas coming on stream there, like Robbie Minahan. Like it's a really, really good team. So Haven will be there or thereabouts, but they've got to figure out a way to get the better of this good Bars team.
Well, they can at least take some solace from the fact that the Bars are also in the Premier Senior Hurling final as well, and those three Cahalans, as you mentioned, will be involved. So there will be some Castlehaven interest in the county final stages, but it will be with the Bars and it will be with the small ball. The other big semi-final at the weekend, Kieran, was obviously O'Donovan Rossa's loss to St Michael's in the Senior A semi-final. And we said last week on this week's podcast, well, you said you had heard through the grapevine that this St Michael's team were looking really strong throughout the championship, and there had been whispers that this is going to be their year potentially, and it looked that way at the weekend. They had 10 points to spare over Gino Donovan's Skibbereen side, but all in all, will Skib be happy with their season this year, because it's an improvement on last year at the very least?
Oh, it's certainly an improvement on last year. Like, they've been kind of up and down the last couple of seasons, Go back to 2020, they got to the semi-final, they lost to Éire. Go to last year, they didn't even get out of the group. This year, back into the semi-final again, but they lost to a St. Michael's team that won by 10 points, but weren't a team that was 10 points better than Skib on the day. This is Gino Donovan's first year in charge of Donovan Rossa, and I think he'll see it as progress, and he was saying after, it's a learning curve and a process this Skibbereen team is on. So he was saying after too that he thinks he'll be in charge again next year. He thinks he's got the nod already. So I think that's something, a bit of consistency for Donovan Rossa, so they can build on what they achieved this year. Some good performances. Dylan Howerhan, Donal Logue, Hodnett, Rory Byrne all played well the last day. But that was O'Donovan Ross's first game in the new Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and I think I saw it was Tony Davis on Twitter had it was O'Donovan Ross's first game in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, new or old, since the 1994 county football final, which is a hell of a long time. What's that? Jesus, we're talking 28 years,
yeah. Which
is crazy for when you think that O'Donovan Rossa are such a well-established big club. But it's an experience that will stand to Skib, to all their players, and hopefully that they will bounce back next year. And just on Michaels for a second, I've written down here, they have been so close to getting out of this grade over the last couple of years. So last year they lost the Senior A final to Mallow, who went up. But in the previous guys, when this was the Premier Intermediate Football Championship, they lost finals in 2012, 2015, 2016, 2017 and 2019. Like, you can call them the bridesmaids. You know, if they deserve to get out of this grade and to
have a crack at the top.
To get up to the Premier Senior and to see how they get on there. So they're through to the final. So we'll watch on with interest how St. Michael's go. And maybe it'll be good news for West Cork clubs if Michael's do get out of this grade, because they beat Skib this year, they beat Donny's last year. So we wish Michael's the best luck this year, because it might mean better luck for West Cork teams next year.
Good stuff. Well, let's park the men's game then for now, Kieran, because as I mentioned at the top of the show, we're going to be joined in a few moments by Castlehaven ladies captain Siobhan Courtney, and that's after they secured their place at the top tier of Cork ladies football for next season. And the story of the Castlehaven ladies, Kieran, is a remarkable one over the last decade or so.
100%. In the last 4 years, so they've won 4 county titles in a row. Junior C in 2019, Junior B in 2020, Junior A last year, and now they're county intermediate champions. And now Castlehaven, I think the ladies club, 10-11 years in existence, are up at the senior ranks. They're up with the Mournabbies, they're up with the big teams, and you can't deserve that. You can't say they don't deserve to be there. But by God, they do it the hard way. The second year in a row up in CIT, now called MTU, they needed a free shootout to get through the final. Last year they got the better of Donny's in the Junior A final, and this year it was Glanmire after a real arm wrestle. It finished 211 to 114 after extra time. Went to the shootout, and Siobhan Courtney, who we're going to hear from quite soon, she kicked one of the frees for Castlehaven, and then Rachel Whelton pointed her way into the history books, into folklore in Castlehaven. They'll have to build a statue in Rachel Whelton's honour, because she nailed the kick that have sent Castlehaven up into the senior ranks. And like you said, Jack, it's one of the great, I suppose, GA West Cork success stories of the last 4 years, how a team has risen from Junior C up to the senior ranks over the space of 4 seasons. And you'll hear from Siobhan quite soon. It's been a hell of a ride. But they're not going up to the senior ranks to make up the numbers. They're going up there to really make an impact. And I remember talking, I think it was to Siobhan after they won the Junior A last year, and it was almost the same message, that they weren't going up to intermediate just to look around and enjoy the scenery. They were going up there to do something, and they did it this year. And now they're up at the senior ranks, and it's I'd be very interested to see how they get on up there. And just to flag it for next week's Star Sport, I'll have a nice piece on the rise of Castlehaven ladies. So I'm going to flag that 1 week in advance. So any Castlehaven fans listen to this week's podcast, there's a load in this week's Star, but there's a load in next week's Star as well. Okay, well, let's not waste any more time. Let's hear from one of the Castlehaven heroes. It's their captain, Siobhan Courtney. 4 county titles in a row for the Castlehaven ladies, going from Junior C up to the senior ranks in the space of 4 magical seasons. So, Siobhan, do you almost have to pinch yourself to see that this is real?
Yeah, we do a bit. I suppose when we started off those 4 years ago, we never would have thought that we would have had this success. I mean, our goal was always to move up through the ranks. As we went up through the ranks, we knew that it would get harder and harder, and we'd have to, train harder, be more dedicated, our commitment, bring in new players. And I suppose that has added to the success over the years.
What do you think the secret to Castlehaven success is?
I think the backing is there within the club. Everyone wants the women's side of the club to be as successful as the men. People want to see the ladies doing well. They want that for the underage, and people are involved in all areas of the club, and they're willing to give their time freely. The same volunteers or multiple volunteers are overlapping between the men's and underage side of the club, and people who have knowledge of football and are interested in football are helping out, and that is of benefit to everyone.
It must be a really proud moment for the club too, to now have a senior men's and ladies football teams.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. In a short space of time, we have moved up to the senior ranks. When we started this year, I suppose our goal was to try and get to a final, but to be victorious was another step in that ladder of success, and we're absolutely delighted with it. It is a great testament to the area here to have senior men and women.
And how important is Diddy Cahalan in this success story?
He's massive. He ties it all together, really. The commitment and dedication that he gives, he expects the same from the rest of us then. And I suppose he leads from the front then. He's, constantly organising different things, and everyone is willing to put that work in then when you see how much the management put in.
Like you said there, your target at the start of this year, your first year up intermediate, was try and get to the final. How did you find your feet so quickly at the intermediate grade?
I suppose in the last few years, we've been playing a nice style of football, and it was just improving that a bit more. We also found that, we had more younger players coming up and wanting to play with the adult team this year. And then that competition for places encourages everyone, pushes everyone on. We were in the gym earlier in the year developing our strength. So that area also is really important as you go up through the grades. And I think that's really benefited us.
You mentioned there about newer girls coming on the panel. Have you found it kind of that old cliche, success breeds success, like that girls in the parish have seen what you have achieved over the last couple of years, and they're putting their hands up now. They want to be part of it because they've seen you win junior county titles, C, B, A, intermediate. So like there's a real momentum behind the Castlehaven ladies team at the moment.
Yeah, there is. I know it is a bit of a cliche, but I do think it is true. We've had great success over the last few years, and people that, when we started off, there's a few of the younger panel who would have been very young when we started off the ladies club. They started and moved up to the structures of the underage teams and are now wanting to be part of our panel. And I suppose success does breed success within the whole club. Teams are being more successful. They're moving up through the grades, and the skills and the knowledge is there within the club.
They say lightning doesn't strike twice, but looking at the county final against Glanmire for the second year in a row, Castlehaven went all the way to a shootout in freeze to win a county title. So did that experience against Donny's last year winning the Junior A, how much did that stand for you when you faced off against Glanmire in that free shootout at MTU?
Yeah, I think, when we got to the end of extra time, it wasn't as daunting for us this time. We knew what lay ahead. People, I suppose, weren't as shell-shocked at what was going to happen. We had practiced it quite a bit now. This year, I suppose we were laughing and joking, we'll never get to this again. But there we were, and that was of huge benefit to us. People weren't worried about going up, taking the shot. They were happy to do so. At the end of the day, we were all a team in it, and, whatever the result, we've all done our best together. Luckily we did, we did score 2, which was enough. But I do think that experience of last year stood to us, yeah.
You nailed one of the frees in the shootout. What was going through your mind as you stepped up to kick the ball?
Well, I'm not sure, but we did a lot of practice during the week on it. I suppose in a fun way more so than actually having to do it seriously. But I had a bit of belief in myself. When I was overtraining during the week, I suppose I'd been kicking a lot of them to the left. So I knew that I needed to straighten up a bit, and I was delighted just to see it go over the bar.
And what was that feeling like when you saw Rachel Whelton kick her free over, and did that turn out to be the winning kick? That must have been a magical moment.
It was. Rachel did the same for us last year, which was brilliant. It was great. I suppose we knew we still had to steady ourselves because Glanmire had a shot to take still. So, we could have been going a bit further with the shootout. But it put us in a really good chance. We were down one, and then all of a sudden we were up one, and we were in there then, which is great.
You're a team where you see success over the last couple of years. So how did the celebrations on Saturday night compare to what had gone in previous years?
The celebrations were pretty good. Yeah, I think as we've gone up through the grades, the celebrations have upped as well. It was brilliant. I suppose we've had to regroup now again this week. It's a quick turnover to the Munster. I suppose we were disappointed last year with how we performed and how it ended for us. So we're hoping to do, to progress a bit more this year.
You mentioned their Munster, so Castlehaven are out in the Munster Intermediate Championship this weekend, taking on the Waterford champions on Sunday, I think. So how hard is it to regroup? Because you're just coming off an incredible high, winning an intermediate title and going up senior, but to focus the minds back again this year and get ready for another game this weekend.
Yeah, I suppose it's all bonus territory now. We go out, we give it a go. You don't know an awful lot about the opposition. But I suppose you go out and you try and play your own game and you adjust as you're playing the game. Then it is, you're coming down from a high, but you're trying to carry that momentum into the game, get the bodies recovered and to go again. To be honest, I think if you asked everyone on the panel, would they like to be still playing football, and everyone would say yes. So, we're delighted to be still going. We don't want it to end. And
obviously, like, Munster's coming up, so you probably haven't even thought about going senior next year. But at some stage over the winter, Siobhan, like, you'll be thinking, okay, we might have a crack off more Abbey next year, or Clonakilty, or Kinsale, or whoever it is, Éire Oak, whoever it is. Like, that's where this Castlehaven team wants to be, taking on the best teams in the county.
Absolutely, yeah. I suppose we will be testing ourselves massively now next year in the senior ranks, but it's an opportunity and it's a challenge that we're looking forward to. It's where we've wanted to get to, and I suppose we'll have to have a look at our training and see what we'll need to do in pre-season. We have to up it a bit more, maybe our strength program. I think it'll take a bit more to get to be really competitive in the senior ranks, but I think we're all willing to put in that hard work.
You could probably take a lot of encouragement and confidence from the fact that every step up you've taken over the last couple of years, you've met that step, and at the first time of asking, you've progressed from that grade. So, like, this is a team, like I said, there's momentum behind you, obviously lots of skill, ability and all that, but you've proven that you're able to take those step up, so you can take it out from that as well.
Yeah, we can. I suppose every year when we start off, we have a team meeting, we set out, what our goals are for the year. And, then we the management decide how we're going to get to those goals and how we're going to reach those targets. And people have no problem putting in the hard work. I suppose it won't be any different this year. We'll have to decide, what our targets are, what are we trying to do at senior level, and go from there.
Consider that I think the Castlehaven Ladies Club, what is it, 10, 11, 12 years old, like it's still quite new for this team to go up senior so fast. Like, like you said earlier, it's a testament to the people in the club and everyone in the background that's played their part in this.
Yeah, it is. There's an awful lot of people that it takes to run the club. Like, we're just out there, training and playing football. I suppose we're getting huge benefit and huge enjoyment out of it. Obviously the supporters do as well, our family do. So there's a lot of people behind the scene. Our committee and the board, the chairperson and the secretary, they do a huge amount of work in the background, and we do really appreciate all of that.
And finally, Siobhan, the fact now we have Castlehaven senior men's and women's team, surely there has to be a friendly bet here on between the Castlehaven men's and women's team. Who's going to win the senior county next?
I don't know now, but we go up against the men in that. They're doing very, obviously they were unlucky there on Sunday, coming up against a good Bars side. But I suppose when they've played in the senior ranks for quite a few years, they're well experienced there. But I suppose, I don't know what I'd be going for that one now. But I'd back us, of course.
Of course you'd back you. Like, I'd be backing you too, because you've proven every time so far that you've been able to make the step up. So if the likes of Brian and Michael Hurley are listening to that. Lads, the pressure is on you to match the Castlehaven women. So again, Siobhan, thank you so much, and congratulations again, and best of luck this weekend in Munster.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Kieran.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Kieran, in part one we were speaking about the remarkable rise of the Castlehaven ladies, and now they had put a run of back-to-back championships together. Another West Cork team who's on a similar trajectory is the Courcey Rovers hurlers, who are in their second county final in succession and looking for back-to-back promotions in their own right. Matthew Hurley has been chatting to their manager, Sean, I'm going to say his name wrong again, and Joe Guiheen, so apologies for that, Sean, but it's not one I'm overly familiar with. Can you correct me on that one?
I think you did a better job than I do.
Okay, so Sean, our apologies. We'll get in touch with you afterwards and we'll figure it out how it's pronounced correctly.
And if we pronounce it wrong, Sean, we'll post you a free copy of the Star just to make up for our misdemeanour.
There you go. But regardless, Matthew's been chatting to Sean. We'll call him Coach Sean from here on in. And Kieran, the Courceys are on a remarkable run as well.
100%. They were Premier Intermediate hurling champions last year. They had a memorable night out in Páirc Uí Chaoimh and went up to this senior A ranks, and if they found their feet, not only have they found their feet, they've gone all the way to the final. Okay, they're going to find it tough against a really good Ford O'Neill's team that will be favourites in this county final on Sunday. But Courceys are in with a shout. Just look at their semi-final performance. They got 5 goals, and Sean Toomey scored 4 goals. And Sean Toomey is a Cork senior panellist, and he's someone that Coach Sean in our podcast in our chat that we'll hear from quite soon is adamant should be really given his run out in the starting team with the Cork senior hurlers. So Courceys are there on merit. Can they win this game? Of course they can. It's a final. Anything can happen in a final. And I think what will help Courceys, they have the experience of last year. They know what it's like to build up to a county final. They know what the dressing rooms in Páirc Uí Chaoimh are like. They know what it's like to run out on a county final with a big Courceys crowd there. So they're not going to be overawed by the occasion at all on Sunday. And I think that will stand to them. So it's going to come down to who produces the best performance on the day. And hopefully we'll be celebrating Courceys' win. But like you said, Matthew had a very good catch-up with Coach Sean.
So after gaining promotion to the Senior A Hurling Championship last season, Courcey Rovers are now in the final of the competition, playing against Father O'Neill's this Sunday at 4 o'clock in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. And joining me here is Sean Guiheen, the manager of the team, former Páirc player, brilliant manager as well. So glad to have you on, Sean. And how are the players before the game?
No, they're in great form, Matthew, to be fair. They're very relaxed. I suppose it's handy that we had been in the final last year. Similar situation, I suppose, as this year, and they're familiar with the situation, the dress rooms, the field. I suppose winning the county last year, so it's not new to them, and they're really looking forward to it.
I can imagine. So, and I suppose, did you, at the start of the season, did you ever envisage you'd make a final? Because like being promoted from Premier Intermediate is pretty tough, but to reach all the way to the Senior A final, the second grade in Cork hurling, like that would have been a big ask, I could imagine.
I suppose, you know, it was when I suppose when the draw was made, Matthew, you know, it was an extremely tough group we got, you know, and don't get me wrong, every game at that level is hard and tough. They're all 50-50 games, but you know, when you go up, you probably hope to get something a little bit easier than the 3 teams that we got. To get out of the group stage, I think it was a great boost to us because we were very competitive in the 3 games we played. And I suppose when we got out of it, then we said, you know, come here, we're in a quarterfinal now. Anything can happen. Let's get a performance right. We'll have a cut and take one game at a time, and that's what we've done.
Exactly. So, and even looking at the group stage, like did you have Father O'Neill's in there this Sunday's finalists, of course, and you also had Blarney, who've the likes of Mark Coleman and the Barretts of the team as well. So that wasn't an easy group to get out of.
No. Like even Killa, Matthew, they're a very traditional hurling club. They're very good, and I watched them this year a few times in the league, and they were very competitive. They beat a lot of senior teams in the league, Middleton, the Páirc, Bishopstown, you know, and they kept their status. So that first game was very important to us because I think it's very important to get off to a winning start. And I imagine Killa were looking at our game, probably saying that out of the 4 teams, probably Courcey Rovers would be the game that they probably feel they could win. So I think by winning that first game, it certainly brought us on with belief, I suppose, and a lot more hope in the last 2 games going into. So it was great to get it off to a good start, you know.
Definitely was. And I suppose like playing Páirc Uí at the group stage, like would that have been a positive to you, especially that you're playing the final this Sunday?
I definitely think so, Matthew, because from day one, the region have favourites to win the competition, you know. I imagine even they've been knocking on the door the last few years to get over the line, and they've been very close. And if you look at the Charleville 2 years ago, they narrowly lost to Charleville. And you look at Charleville's results this year, they drew with the Bars. They led from a majority of the time against Blackrock and got beaten by 2 points. And here the 2 points are in the county final. And likewise with Kanturk, they were very close to Kanturk coming down the home straight last year. And Kanturk pipped them, and Kanturk knocks out Middleton this year in the county final. So to go up against Fairneils, yes, they deserved to win the day, but we were competitive, I thought. You know, for conceded a goal late in the game, all right. But it kind of put us where we were. We found where you're at. You know, that we can, at least we can compete, and it gave us hope. You know.
Yeah, and I suppose like I haven't thought about this before until you said it. Actually, like Charlotte do so well against the Bars and against Blackrock, the 2 county finalists, obviously, and Páirc Uí is then nearly beating Charleville a few seasons ago. Very unlucky to lose that final, and you're playing Páirc Uí this Sunday. Like, would that give you confidence, even if you don't win on Sunday, if you put up a brilliant performance against Páirc Uí, that you can push on even further?
Well, I think it's all like, you know, finals are there to be won. You know, and I know we're the way we want to do it, I suppose, to perform. We just want to get our performance right on Sunday and perform to our very, 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 very maximum and see what we can do. And if it's good enough to win, it'd be fantastic. If we lose, we're expected to lose. You know, but it's still not, you're in there, you want to win. We're up against it, we know that. Because they're a serious team. I mean, you look on paper what they have, and even Decky Dalton, I think by all accounts, he's back in the Cork senior hurling panel. Billy Dunn's form this year, he's lighting up the lights, and I imagine Pat Ryan and his Cork's selectors will be down Sunday watching Billy Dunn. He could be back on the senior hurling panel the way he's performing, and then of course with John Mellerick. But we just focus on our own house really, and we just, as I said, we're just trying to get our performance right for next Sunday, and hopefully be performing. You never know.
And just before the final, obviously, against Ballyhay in the quarterfinals, and Fermoy, especially the semi-finals, like Ballyhay, you just beat them by 17 points to 16. Fermoy, it was a Sean Toom-inspired 4-goal performance in the semi-final, winning 5-14 to 14 points. Like, getting over them 2 hurdles must have been massive.
It was huge because, you know yourself, you get out the group stage and you're in the quarterfinals, knockouts. And, you know, you're playing Ballyhay first, and I know Ballyhay, what they bring to the table. They're always competitive. They're a brilliant club, and you never get nothing easy off them. We were 11-7 up at half time, and we just lost away in the second half. And you could probably put that down to Ballyhay. The momentum turned, and looked. I think they took the lead with about the 57, 58 minutes for the first time. And you think it's going away from us. We found it hard to get a score, and we were doing mistakes. But I got to give great credit to our fellas. Again, you know, they found a way, and we got an equalising score. I think they went ahead again in injury time, and you think, God, this is this. And to get 2 points to win it, I give great credit to my guys again. And that, you know, they just don't know, they don't give up, and they found a way. For my, again, I'd branch out more often than not. I go into games, and I'd have 3 or 4 times I've seen them playing, and I knew nothing about for my. So I knew very little. So we went into the game kind of trying to focus on our own performance, obviously. And you know, we had a decent start. Then they got control of the game. They went 7-3 up. We got 2 goals. I think it settled us. We got a goal early in the second half, and I think that was kind of one-way traffic then after that. But I'm delighted with from Sean Toomey. I think Sean is a fabulous player. He's a big player for us. Very honest guy, great guy, and I think he's shown this year what he can bring to the table, you know, because he's a Cork player, you know, he has that ability, he can win his own ball, high or low, whatever. He's a threat always, but his work ethic is more important to me, the way he works and he chases and harasses defenders. He's a huge player for us.
You talked about earlier Billy Dunn and Dickie Dawson, and rightly so, they're outstanding players for Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and Pat Ryan will be taking a look at them, I'm sure. But your own player, Sean Guiheen, scored, I think, 6-3 from playing the championship so far. Like, will Pat Ryan have a look at him in the final this Sunday as well? Because he is on fire.
Well, I suppose with Sean, he's been on the Cork panel for the last few years, Matthew. You know, I suppose he's 22 now, and I suppose that he might feel it's time from now to, you know, he's done his time, you know, 3 years, and maybe this time now to give him an opportunity and chance. He's certainly probably something that we Cork might need. You know, he's the type of guy that can win hard ball, high ball, low ball. He's very physical, and I think that definitely they'll be looking at him, yeah.
And even other players in the panel, I'm looking at your scores here. Richard Sweetman with 29 points, Tycho Sullivan with 23 points, Stephen Nine has done well with 9 points as well, Rowan 9 with 1-4. So they're all chipping in.
Yeah, Matthew, they're all. This year we were kind of, I suppose, we were working really hard on getting the spray scores around the field of play. We worked very hard on that. And everyone are comfortable. Like, look, Richard had an injury at the start of the year, was out for a few months, but he's come back now. He's really finding his form. Stephen Nine, you know what Stephen Nine can do, and Ronan Nine, these guys, Owen Crowley, Jerry O'Neill, you know, they're all good guys. They're all good Courcey Rovers players, you know.
And even last season, like after getting promoted from that Premier Intermediate Championship and even playing in the Munster Championship against Kilmiley last year as well, and coming into this championship, honestly, now, what was the realistic objective this season? Was it to get to the knockout stages and take it from there?
I suppose, Matthew, you know, when again I go back to the draw, when the draw was made, I think that we just focused. We said we just focus on the first game, and we see what happens. When we won the first game, then we put up probably in a good position now to at least get out of the group now. So you had 2 opportunities against Bernese and Blarney to do that, which gave us a great chance. And obviously, when we beat Blarney in the third game, I felt then, you know, I just felt like got out of a good group. It was a great test for us to see where we're at, because we found in the league, the Blarney and Ballyhale were in the league with us, and the rest of the teams were Premier Intermediate or Lower Intermediate, and you don't know where you're at. You know, you feel like, okay, we won the games comfortable enough, we topped the table, and we said like, we're going in against Killer, we're going in cold, are we up to the pace of the game? But to be fair to the boys, they adapted very well, and they're comfortable enough, and yeah, we're fine, we're going well, and we're happy where we're at.
And getting promoted last season, Páirc Uí Chaoimh is obviously losing a good few finals in Senior A and being close year on year. Like, even if you were to lose on Sunday now, would it be a big achievement even to reach a final? Like, the people of Courceys, I could imagine, are proud of the team already.
Yeah, the journey we've been on, Matthew, has been incredible. You know, and it's only in like kind of 2 years now we're at it. We've got a great response from the players. To be fair, every game they've played, like, they've been superb for us. They owe us nothing, and they owe Courcey Rovers nothing at the minute. I think the supporters, you know, even the joy when we won the semi-final last day, to come down onto the field of play, the dressing rooms afterwards, the happiness. Like, these days don't come every year, and that's my point to the players and to the supporters. You got to make the most of them, out of it. And as I know, we're big underdogs, and I know they're 1-6 on Páirc Uí Chaoimh to win, and everyone is tipping them to win comfortable and so on like that. For me, it's different. I think that we want to go and win, and I feel there's a chance, an opportunity for us to win. Yes, we have to be very good in the day. We need to get to rub the green, you know. But I just feel, okay, if we lose, yes, you'll be disappointed. I'd be massively disappointed. But the objective is Sunday to try and win the game.
And what people watching the podcast might not know is you're a former Páirc player, and you won a county title back in the 90s as well. So what was your time in the Páirc like? Like a very good team, I could imagine.
I was very fortunate, I suppose, Matthew. The time I made my debut in '89, and we made a breakthrough in 1990. You know, we had a very good team that time, and probably should have won more and achieved more. We won our second one in '95. Then we got beaten in '92 by Aaron's Own. We lost in 3 semi-finals, '93, '94, '96. And then we didn't, you know, 2004, I was on that panel that time, we won in 2004. So I suppose my own playing career, I was lucky, I was fortunate. I was on a very good team, you know.
And what brought you down to Courceys from the Páirc League? Like the Páirc League, a huge hurling club, and then coming down to Courceys, like what made you come down in the first place?
See, I suppose I'm in coaching a good while now, and it's something I love doing. I get a buzz out of it, you know. And I had been the Páirc League coach in 2013 and 14, and then you feel, you know, you done your time, you got to move on, you know, somewhere else. And I got a phone call off Sean Guiheen, the chairman, and could he meet up with me and have a chat with me? And we had a couple of chats, a couple of meetings, and yeah, we decided to go for it, and yeah, that was how it worked out that way.
It's been some ride since.
Amazing, unbelievable journey. To be fair, probably something to start when I went down there. You're kind of going into it, you know, with COVID that time. So we actually didn't get on the field of play until last May. So you're saying you're kind of trying to get your stamp in the team and so on like that. You're kind of saying, Jesus, like, you know, normally you start in January and you get a feel for them and they get a feel for you. But as I said, the buy-in from the players from day one has been sensational. They're great young fellas. They're willing to learn. They adapt very easy to situations. We have a great relationship. You know, they're very respectful, and we enjoy one another's company. We have a bit of banter. We have a crack, and you know, we're having a crack the weekend now. We're out swimming and a bit of banter, and it was nice and relaxed. They're a great bunch of players, and they're guys that certainly I'd love to bring into war with. You can bank on them, you know.
And like, I know you're big underdogs going into this game against Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Nobody's really backing you going to the final. Well, some people are, but what would it be to the people of Courceys to get promoted to the top grade of Cork hurling? Like, especially for a club down here, it isn't really, you know, it doesn't happen too often. So, like, for Courceys to go up to the senior grade of Cork football, that'd be huge.
Sure, it'd be amazing, Matthew. To be fair, like, you know, you just even see last year the people, you know, from young and old crying after the county final last year, and even after the Munster, we beat Magret in the semi-final, the Munster semi-final, and the enjoyment and the joy, and you know, even we got beaten in the Munster final. But they're a very passionate club, and they're so well run down there, and they love their hurling, lovely people. So it'd be great for them. It'd be great to back up senior. You know what I mean? There's a young team there, to be fair. They're young, and there's a lot of potential there. And so, look, fingers crossed, you never know.
And that young talent, like, will it drive you on in years to come? Like, even if you lose on Sunday, like, the talent is coming through in Courcey, some huge talent. Yeah,
look, listen, I think the future looks bright down there. I really do. I think there's great young fellas coming up. And they have a structure, Matthew, which is important. Like, they have a structure. They have a very good chairman down there, Sean Guiheen. He's driving on the whole thing. And underage, you see the underage structures. There's very good coaching being done down there. There's numbers are picking up. And yeah, the future looks good down there. There's a very good club, very well run. They're very together down there, very united, loyal bunch. So it's very promising down there at the moment.
And that final in the Senior A Hurling Championship, the County Senior A Hurling Championship, Páirc Uí Chaoimh against Courcey Rovers is on at 4 o'clock in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. And I'd really recommend that you go down to that game. It'll be a huge game in Páirc Uí Chaoimh on Sunday. Thanks, Sean, for coming on the podcast. Wish you the best of luck on Sunday. And the whole of West Cork and the whole of this region really is behind Courcey Rovers on Sunday.
Thanks a million, Matthew. I appreciate it. Bye.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Right, Kieran, I suppose we should probably say before we wrap up and look ahead to this week's paper that for anyone watching on YouTube, don't adjust your screens. Yes, you are correct. We are in the studio together for the first time in a very long time, and Kieran, it's great to be back. It just feels right.
It feels like we're home, Jack, you know, doesn't it? It feels like we're back to where we started. I think we're a bit older, a bit greyer.
Speak for yourself.
Some people's hair is a bit more wild than it was the last time we were in the studio, but it's nice. It's nice to be back in the studio here in Star HQ in Skib just to record the podcast. It's been too long, Jack. We've been having our different adventures, but good to get the dream team back together. And I'm sure all our fans now on YouTube will be leaving comments, because we even kind of got coordinated with our dress sense today. Like we look
professional.
Oh, we do for once, kind of. We're after scrubbing up over the last couple of years, so good to be back in the office. Good to record the podcast live here again. So it's probably the only one in a while we'll do together, but we'll have to get the team back. We'll have to have a reunion again soon.
Well, no, in saying that, next week's podcast will also be recorded in person, in studio, and for those of you tuning in either on video or on audio, it's a very special episode of the Star Sport podcast, because next week is going to be the 200th episode. Yes, I said that, the 200th episode. So for 200 episodes we've been together making these podcasts. No one's cancelled us yet. We've yet to be cancelled in either the sense that we're not getting enough numbers or we said something inappropriately. No cancellations. No. And we're celebrating with, I might say, our favourite guest so far. He doesn't do many interviews, but he's agreed to chat to the Star Sport podcast to celebrate our 200th episode. He's West Cork royalty, Kieran. I'll give you a little drum roll and you can reveal to this week's listeners who our guest for next week will be.
We decided to go big or go home, so we went big. So Bantry Blues and Cork legend Graham Canty. We've a big chat with him, really good chat, and I actually had the chat with Graham already. We've had a really good catch up, and this is a really good podcast. And for any sports fans, whether you're a GA fan, a rowing fan, rugby, soccer, whether you're from West Cork or Armagh or diaspora abroad, I think you want to listen to this podcast, because Graham is in really good form. Like you said, he doesn't really give too many interviews anymore. Even when he was a player, he was very reluctant for, I suppose, to say too much in the media. But he agreed to come on for a chat to mark, I suppose, the 200th episode of the Star Sport podcast. So we talked a lot about his time at Bantry Blues, growing up as a young fella in Bantry, coming on to that Bantry team in '98 that won the County Senior Football Championship. And it goes from, the chat went from there onto his time with Cork. And of course, he captained Cork to the 2010 All-Ireland.
The last Cork man.
Exactly.
To Sam Maguire.
And we're even chatting about the night that Sam Maguire came back to Bantry and what that was like for him, and having the Iveleary from Hoodie Island out in the bay when the Cork bus was coming into Bantry town, and there were some Cork footballers from the city on the bus saying, what is going on here? And it was just such a unique and special occasion. And we chatted about an awful lot with Graham, and you'll have to check out next week's podcast to listen. But I also asked him, because he was telling me he was at this year's All-Ireland football final, and he was impressed by a certain Clifford Kerry man from across the county bounds. So I put it to Graham, who would be the best man from that 2010 Cork team to mark David Clifford? So you'll have to check out next week's podcast for Graham's answer. But a really good chat, and a brilliant way to mark the 200th episode.
Yeah, so that'll be out wherever you get your podcast, and of course on the Southern Star YouTube channel from next Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll confirm closer to the time. But Kieran, just back to this week and this week's Star Sports section. Let's briefly preview it before we wrap up. What can readers expect?
And we've already gone through obviously the likes of Castlehaven's big win, Bantry Blues big win, and I know there was losses for St Michael's and Castlehaven men's. They're all there. Also worth mentioning that the O'Donovan Rossall ladies lost their county junior final to Neva. We have a full page on that. And there was disappointment too for Clonakilty in the county senior B ladies football final. And we have a report and reaction from that, as Clon captain Ginny Quinn tells us that she thinks this is still a platform for Clon to build on going forward. So that's there. We also, the last word column this week is on Dominic Casey, Coach Dominic Casey. He's the man behind the Rowing Ireland lightweight success story. He's a man from just out the road here in Skibbereen, and I've done just a look at what makes Dominic Casey so successful. Like, his success is incredible. Irish lightweight rowing has never won as many medals as they've had until Dominic came along. So I'm trying to find out what's the secret to what's the magic behind Dominic Casey, so you can check that out. And another interesting story on Skib rowing that we have in this week's Southern Star is that they need new boats. The club needs new boats. A lot of their old workhorses, as they're called, have seen better days. And when it comes to rowing boats, they're really, really quite expensive. An 8 costs 50,000. So that just shows you how dear rowing boats are. And Skib are looking for at least 3 or 4 new boats. So it's worth checking out how Ireland's most successful rowing club. It's not staying still. It wants to build and it wants to push forward. We also have an interview with Daniel O'Callaghan. He's one of the members or the founders of the new Mizzen Hob team in the West Cork League. So Matthew Hurley caught up with Daniel just to chat about why they form Mizzen Hob. So Mizzen Hob are Mizzen AFC and Ballydehob. They both come together. So there's two teams, Mizzen Hob A, Mizzen Hob B in the Premier Division and the Championship. So that's there. We also have news from the Carby Junior Championship. Kinsale won the Southeast Championship. There's a lot going in there. New contract for Josh Wycherley. Gavin Coombs is back training. You name it, it's in Thursday Southern Star.
And of course, that will be in shops across West Cork and beyond from Thursday morning. But if you can't make it to a shop for any reason, you can subscribe online. Just go to www.southernstar.ie/e-paper and subscribe to the Southern Star on your computer, tablet or smartphone for less than €2 per week. Thanks for listening to the Star Sport Podcast, and thanks as well to our producer Dylan Mangan and our reporter Matthew Hurley. If you enjoy these shows, please make sure to rate, review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Slán Tamil.